My mic is not on. There we go. All right. Cool. All right. So we're starting this series that we're calling True Story. And what it's about is about who we are and who God is. God is. I don't know why I put a T at the end of God. But who God is. And to start it out, we're going to do something kind of, it might be a little weird. And so you just need to kind of be okay with it because it's not like super weird. What I need you to do is I need you to find a buddy or two buddies. So like groups no bigger than 3, so that, you know, if you're in a group of 5, I don't want weirdness. But here's how it's going to work. You're going to find a buddy, and you are going to share with that person, if you're in groups of 3, you're working out something that you really love, something you love doing, something you love eating, something you love, whatever. Go ahead. Ready? 1, 2, 3, go. All right, this is rapid sharing, so hopefully you didn't require many details. Something that you love. All right. Now, it doesn't have to, we're not going to like be hardcore about it. If you're still talking about something you love, that's okay. How about somebody share a fact about their family? So an interesting fact, again, share it with the buddies, A fact, an interesting fact about your family. Maybe like my stepfather was a horse. You know, I don't know. I just said something silly. A fun fact about your family. All right. Couple more seconds on fun facts about your family. All right, next, your favorite memory. Your favorite memory. Leon, what's up? I can't hear you at all. Do you want when you won the banana game? I'm happy for you, man. It was a big moment in banana game history, so I'm glad you be a part of it. Favorite memory? All right. Begin to wrap up your sharing. All right, wrapping that up. The truth is that we're all unique in a lot of different ways, right? We all have things that make us unique, right? Like how many of you guys, if you're sitting with like friends you've known for a while, how many of you guys learned something you didn't know about them, right? How many guys, a couple of you guys learned something you didn't know about like that friend? Nobody in this row learned anything? All right, good. Yeah, you know, you guys have discussed that, you know, all your family secrets. But the truth is even though like we all admit in a game like that we have things that make us unique, we have things that make us different, that's not always like something that's easy to live with, right? Like if we went around and if I said, raise your hand if, and this is kind of an either or, raise your hand if you'd rather like stand out. How many guys would say I'd rather stand out? A couple of you guys. How many guys would say like I'd rather blend in? Right? I personally am a little more of a blend in guy. And I know you would say, Addison, that's so surprising. You're so exuberant and happy. No, like if I could like have a quiet job in a cubicle, that would be, no, like grocery store, like I wear headphones. Like that's like I'm a blend in guy. Not really. Or at least I'm not aware of it. Because people are like, look at that guy wearing headphones. People are like, look at that guy wearing headphones. And I'm just listening to John Cuff's start. You know what I mean? Like it's all right. Raise your hand if you felt pressured to hide or change who you are, right? Nick, you should change that whole milk thing. Nick drinks milk with savory meals like spaghetti, and it's strange behavior. It is. Okay, well, you could be with him on it. It just means more people in the room are wrong.
Tech supporting tech.
What? Go ahead. All right. How many of you guys have felt like who you are isn't good enough, right? Like I've felt that way before, right? Like I felt that way today. Like, you know what I mean? Like it's like, you know, that happens a lot, right? How about Okay, sorry, I thought I had another one. Even though we don't talk about it, like most of us have insecurities, right? Like, in fact, like if you met somebody and you genuinely believe they didn't have insecurities, you would think that was weird, right? Like if you met somebody who was like, no, I'm completely confident all the time. It's just who I am. I'm just confident. I'm not insecure about anything. What do you mean? You know what I mean? That person would seem so weird to you. And even though that is true, we tend to think our insecurities are like completely unique to us, which is an interesting thing, right? Because we admit that like, well, everybody's insecure about something, and yet we think that, well, my insecurities are somehow unique to me, or nobody else really struggles with the same insecurity that I struggle with. So over the next 4 weeks, we're going to be talking about insecurities, and specifically, we're going to be talking about who we are and who God is, like I said. And what we're going to do is we're going to look at stories in the Bible, which is why it's called True Story. We're going to look at stories in the Bible that kind of highlight some different ways that we might have some insecurities, that we might have some odd characteristics about ourselves. And tonight, we're going to talk about jealousy. How many of you guys have ever been jealous? Right? Okay. Yeah, at least we have honesty in the room. I like it. You know, I have definitely struggled with jealousy before, right? Like I am, and I can just be, you know, somewhat transparent here. I am the type of person where like if I see somebody else getting, you know, complimented or getting like a lot of credit or something, like I have to check kind of my heart, because I find myself being like upset that person is like getting a bunch of credit and all that type of stuff. And I know like you would say, well, Addison, you preach against exactly that a lot. And yeah, that's true. But it doesn't mean it's not something that I struggle with. And what's interesting about jealousy is how you can like start out at a place of jealousy and quickly let it morph into something like way worse, right? Like you could start out at like, man, Marty's beard is so cool. And I wish I could grow that cool of a beard. And then over time, you being jealous of Marty's cool beard, right? Allie? Okay. You being jealous of Marty's cool beard morphs into where you're just kind of sitting there, and it's lunch, right? Because you always have these thoughts at lunch, and you sit over there and you look over there and you're like, look at Marty sitting over there, growing hair on his face like he owns the place. You know what I mean? Like, and you let yourself, what happens is you let jealousy become almost like a form of hatred, right? Like you would never like use those words, right? You would never say like, oh, I hate that person because I'm jealous of them. But what you do and what we do is we let jealousy become something that kind of changes who we are. We let jealousy become something that changes the way we interact with someone. And it goes from, wow, I kind of struggle with jealousy. Can you wait until the end, bud? You can ask them in your small group for sure. It goes from like, wow, I kind of struggle with jealousy, all the way to like, man, I don't like that person, right? And we've never connected the two ideas in your head, but if you were to look at somebody who you feel like you don't like, it probably started from a place where you looked at that person getting credit or getting accolades or getting recognized in a way that you weren't recognized. And what happened was that your jealousy grew into something way worse. And as I thought about it, I thought about this scene actually from a movie called Toy Story. How many of you guys remember? If you've never seen Toy Story 1, this is a point of view. First of all, you notice a couple things watching this video. You realize that Pixar hadn't quite figured out how to animate humans, because Andy looks like a straight up monster. I'm just saying, if a kid actually looked like that, he should stay home and play with his toys. You know what I mean? I'm sorry, that was really mean, fictional character. But what's happening in this scene, if you remember the beginning of Toy Story, is I think it was Christmas. No, it was Andy's birthday. It was Andy's birthday. And all the toys were really worried about what was going to happen with Andy and was he going to get a new toy. And Andy gets a new toy. And what is that toy's name? It's Buzz Lightyear, and Buzz Lightyear is a Space Ranger toy, and he comes, and all the toys really love him, and Andy really loves him, and Woody gets jealous, right? And Woody gets extremely jealous, and the whole plot, first of all, that's hilarious, but the whole plot of Toy Story is really how Woody starts in this place of being jealous of Buzz, and then they become friends by the end of the movie, and it's really the story about jealousy. It's a story about jealousy that got out of control. And of course, again, they resolve it and everything becomes okay. But the thing is we all relate with that story. And like I told you guys, I am somebody who sometimes struggles with jealousy. And the story we're going to look at tonight looks at two Bible characters who one was jealous of the other. And really that's kind of the long and short of it. And what we see is that, like I said, can sometimes happen with jealousy. Jealousy ultimately leads to destruction. It's in Genesis 4, and we're going to start in verse 1. So whether you're on your phone or you have a Bible, go to Genesis 4. Genesis is the first book in your Bible. 1, 2, 3, 4. If you hit 5, you've gone too far. 6 is right out. Go to 4, and then we're going to read 1 through 8. It's talking about Adam and Eve. Adam made love to his wife Eve, and she became pregnant and gave birth to Cain. She said, "With the help of the Lord, I have brought forth a man." Later, she gave birth to his brother Abel, Cain and Abel. Now, Abel kept the flocks, and Cain worked the soil. So all we know about Cain and... What was that? Oh, it was a cell phone. I thought I stepped on something. All we know about Cain and Abel is that Abel keeps flocks and Cain works the soil. In the course of time, Cain bought some of the fruits of the soil as an offering to the Lord. So, Cain is working the soil. He takes some of the fruit and he brings it as an offering before the Lord. And Abel also bought an offering, fat portions from some of the firstborn of his flock. The Lord looked with favor on Abel and his offering. But on Cain and his offering, he did not look with favor. So Cain was very angry, and his face was downcast, which I think just means he was just like... I think that's what a downcast face looks like. We never studied it in school or anything, but I think so. So what's happened is Cain bought some, vegetables, some fruits, whatever you want to call it, and he brings it as an offering before the Lord. Abel brings the firstborn of his flock as an offering to the Lord, and God favors Abel's offering. Now, people have always tried to figure out, why did he favor Abel's offering, whatever. But we know, for our purposes, we know Cain gets mad that God favors Abel and not Cain. Cain's like, it's not fair. My face is downcast. What if you just started saying that to your parents? Like, hey, you seem like you're in a bad mood. Is everything okay? And you're just like, no, my face is downcast. You should try that. I think that'd be really funny. Anyway, so his face is downcast. And then him and God have this conversation. I think they do. Then the Lord said to Cain, "Why are you angry? Why is your face downcast?" It is funny. If you do what is right, will you not be accepted? So we can assume that there was something that was not right about Cain's offering. Again, we don't necessarily know what it is, but that's what we can assume. But if you do what is right, but if you do not do what is right, sin is crouching. Okay, skin is... Sin is crouching at your door. It desires to have you, but you must rule over it. So he's saying, hey, Cain, you seem mad, and you don't want to become more mad because you're going to do something stupid. Now, Cain said to his brother Abel, "Let's go out to the field." While they were in the field, Cain attacked his brother Abel and killed him. Cain was jealous, and it ultimately led to the destruction of not just his family, but we would later read that Cain was kind of kicked out of the community, and he was kind of sent out into the earth because of what he had done. Cain let a moment of jealousy that he could have just said, well, you know what, I'll just bring an offering next time. It's no big deal. He let jealousy so consume him that it ultimately led to him killing his brother. But this isn't even the only time this happens in the Bible. There's this story of this guy named Joseph, and I've talked about this story here, but maybe you're new. Maybe you haven't heard it before. Basically what happened is there was a man, and this man had 12 sons. And the youngest of those 12 sons was Joseph. And Joseph began to have dreams about how, and I am very much summarizing this, so this is not like all the detail. If I get something wrong, I'm shooting from the hip here. So have some grace, So Joseph is the youngest. He starts to have dreams that he's going to be in charge of all 11 of his brothers. His brothers aren't having that because, first of all, they don't think he's going to rule over them, but also the Bible's pretty clear that he was their father's favorite. So he was like the youngest. He was the favorite. Ty, how would it go if Carson was like, Ty, I'm sorry, man. I had a dream, and you're going to bow down at my feet. It's not my way. It's God. So you know what I mean? Like you wouldn't dig that, right? No, yeah. Ty wouldn't dig it. So he probably wouldn't sell him into slavery. But, probably. But anyway, what ends up happening is Joseph tells them this, and then they're out doing Old Testament things one day. And I don't know what exactly they were doing because I don't have the passage in front of me. But they're out doing Old Testament-y things. And what they say is we will, basically, we will kill him, and then we will say what becomes of that dreamer. And then one of the guys goes, you know what? We shouldn't kill him. Instead, we should sell him into slavery. And so what they do is they get together and they sell their younger brother into slavery. And obviously the way, if you know the story, you know that ultimately he ends up ruling over a section of Egypt. He ends up saving his people and all that type of stuff. But what's important is that the brothers become jealous of their younger brother, and ultimately it leads to the destruction of their family. It leads to the destruction of really Joseph's life in a lot of ways. And yes, it would ultimately lead to him being redeemed and being okay. But the point is that the jealousy became ridiculous. You see, jealousy can feel like the right decision in the moment, right? Because it feels good to tell yourself that you're better than somebody. Right? It feels good to sit there and say, oh man, like the joke I made in the beginning, and you could fill this in however you want. Like the joke I made, oh, look at Marty over there growing hair on his face like he owns the place, right? Like we can let ourselves think that way, right? And just I'm kind of joking about it because it's so uncomfortable to talk about, but there's a good chance that you don't have that hard of a time thinking about somebody in your life that you have allowed yourself to think this way about. Right? Somebody you have looked at and you've said, oh, they just think they're so cool. They just think they're so smart. They just think they're so this. They just think they have it all together, but they don't. I know that I'm better than them, right? And we let ourselves think that way. And what the Bible would say to you is that jealousy can feel like the right decision. It can make you feel good for a moment, but it ultimately destroys you. Right? Because the interesting thing about jealousy is the person you're jealous of probably doesn't even know you're jealous of them, because you're not going to go up to them and be like, I'm jealous of you, right? Because nobody's going to do that, right? So you're just kind of seething with jealousy and letting yourself be mad all the time for no reason, because it doesn't affect them at all. They're just living their life, right? You think you're making it difficult for them. Oh, he was coming behind me and I didn't open the door for him. He had to open his own door. How about that? You know what I mean? You think you're making their life so hard, but the truth is you're just miserable, and your misery isn't affecting them at all. And the Bible knows that about you, and the Bible knows that about me. So even though jealousy can feel like the right decision, it will ultimately destroy you. So how do we avoid jealousy? How do we avoid letting ourselves become jealous? And the way we avoid it is what we're going to talk about kind of all through this series. We have to remember something about God, and we have to remember something about us. What you first of all have to remember is that God is good, right? That God is good, that God created you, that God wills your good, that God didn't make a mistake when he made you, right? So the beginning of dealing with jealousy starts to deal with how you view God and how you view God's relationship with you. See, because if you ultimately believe that God messed up when he made you, right? Oh, God didn't make me talented enough, or God didn't make me smart enough, or God didn't make me attractive enough, or God didn't make me whatever. You see, when we think that way, or God didn't make me, organized enough, or what have you, when we think that way, it's very easy to become jealous, because when we focus fully on our insecurities, when we focus fully on our insufficiency, right, we can easily look around and we could say, oh, well, that person has it together. You know what I mean? Oh, God didn't make me athletic enough, but that person is able to run faster than me. They're stronger than me, right? If God had just made me like that person, everything would be okay, right? But if you believe that God is good, then you have to believe that God didn't make a mistake when he made you. And then therefore you wouldn't allow yourself to say, well, God messed up when he made me and really hit it out of the park when he made that person, so I'm just going to be jealous of him. So it's first of all a belief about God. Secondly, it's a belief about you. You were created by God for a purpose. You were created by God for a purpose. And so what that means is that even though there might not be something that you are better than everyone else in the world at, God created you for a purpose. right? Like even, and this is kind of hard, right? Because the way that things are sometimes messaged to you guys is like, well, if you just believe, you could do whatever you want. And yeah, right. The theme song that Leon just sang. You know what I mean? If you just believe, you could be LeBron James. No amount of believing is going to turn me into LeBron James. No, I mean, it'll just like even if I had played as much basketball as LeBron James, I would still just be kind of okay. You know what I mean? Like, and that's the thing is like, you guys kind of get told this thing like, oh, well, if you just try hard enough, if you just put in the time, ultimately, and like, listen, if you work hard at something, you will get good at it, right? Like, that's the way like life works. But like, it is very possible that you might not be the best person in the world at anything. I am not the best person in the world at anything. Like, literally, there is not one thing. You know what I mean? Like, not like one thing. I mean, maybe I'm probably not even the best Addison Roberts. There's probably substantially better Addison Robertses. You know what I mean? Hold on, buddy. Ask in the small group. The point is that even though you are not the best in the world at any one given thing, that does not change the fact that you were created on purpose and for a purpose, and that you are the best at living out whatever that purpose is. And so when we focus on what other people are doing, right? When we focus on what other people are doing, we will ultimately lose track of following Jesus. How many of you guys drive, right? Not a lot of you, right? Okay. I think this will land. Leon, I'm scared. All right. So if you, all right, let's use bikes as an example. If you were following somebody on a bike, or if you're following somebody in a car, what do you have to focus on in order to follow that person? This is not a hard question. Go. The person, right? If I start looking at signs, or if I start looking at people who are driving next to me like, oh, that's a neat car. Oh, have you seen this gauge? What does this gauge mean? What is this flashing light? You know what I mean? Oh, a piece of my car just fell off, right? Like if you're thinking about all of those sorts of things, you're ultimately not going to successfully follow that person. And that's a helpful analogy because the same is true when it comes to following Jesus. If you're focused on everybody else's journey and everybody else's story, you're not ultimately going to follow Jesus successfully because you're so focused on looking to your right or to your left that you lose track of what's right in front of you. And what Jesus would say to you is that you were created on purpose and for a purpose. You were created by God on purpose and for a purpose. And when you're so obsessed over how good you aren't at somebody else's purpose, and when you allow yourself to be consumed by jealousy, you destroy what God is trying to do for you, and you completely ignore the story He has written for you because you'd rather focus on the story that He didn't write for you. And so you understand why it's so important that we don't allow ourselves to be consumed by jealousy. And kind of our big point, because of who God is, we can trust how God has made us. Because of who God is, we can trust how God has made us. So if you're saying, you know, Addison, I'm going to be real with you. I'm somebody who struggles with jealousy. Here's what we're going to do. You guys all got a card when you came in. If not, you can grab it on your way out. On one side, it says God is. On the other side, I am, right? And some of you guys are like, I don't know anything about God. Well, you know something about yourself. You could start on this side, right? Like, and we can work on this side, you know, over time, right? What I want you to do with this card is I want you to write down some things you know about God. Maybe on the left side, you just write, God is good. And God is God. That would be an accurate sentence. God is what? Better? Created what? 3 in 1, right? God is 3 in 1, right? You could write whatever you might know about God, you could write on that side. And maybe when you guys are in small groups, you guys can kind of work on this together. And then write I am, right? Guys, listen. What I want you to do there is I want you to write like maybe something that you are good at or something that you enjoy. And what we're going to do is we're just going to say, okay, God, this is the beginning of a process where you say, God, how have you purposed me? Because for some of you guys, if you're saying I'm somebody who struggles with jealousy, the big step you have to make tonight is you have to say, you know what? Instead of focusing on everybody else's story, I'm going to focus on the story God is writing through me, right? And if that is the only change you make, guys, that's massive. Right, like that's like a huge deal. So what we're going to do is we're going to pray, and then the worship team is going to come back up, and we're going to get ready to go to small groups. But we're going to pray. And guys, I really want you to think about this tonight, because it really does matter that we not focus so much on what's going on in other people's stories, and we not let ourselves be consumed by jealousy, because God doesn't want that life for you. And this isn't even like a God's mad at you thing. This is like a God wants better for you thing, right? Like God doesn't want you to be so focused on what's happening in everybody else's life. And maybe tonight during worship, you would just say, God, you know what? I don't want to be jealous anymore. I don't want to be the type of person who destroys my story because of my jealousy. And I pray that you would help me to see who you are and who I am, and help that to change the way I approach my life. If we could stand up as we go back into worship, and then we're going to pray together. Jesus, we thank you. We thank you that you have written the trajectory of our lives. Lord, that you see us and that you know us and that you created us on purpose and for a purpose. And I pray that as we go into worship, Lord, you would convict us of the places that we're jealous, of the places where we're looking to our right or to our left and we're allowing jealousy to set in. Help us to see the destructive power of our jealousy and to trade it in for trusting in your goodness. And Lord, I pray that as we go into worship, Lord, you would just speak to our hearts. And I ask all this in your